Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be with you today. My name is Leslie, and I manage the vertebrate living collections, that's the animals with a backbone, here at the museum. I'm here with two of my colleagues, Forrest Urban, who is the manager of the invertebrate living collections. Now, he manages the animals without a backbone. And I've also got Justine McGarry, our lead animal care specialist. We are here. The Living Collections is here to share these animals with you in order to connect your hearts and your minds to the science that happens here at the museum. So we're really excited. We've got a variety of stuff to share with you today. Especially, we've brought animals that have survived the dino age, the great KT extinction. What do I mean by the KT extinction? Well, there's a lot of evidence for a little event that happened about 65 million years ago, wherein a giant asteroid hit the Earth with the force of 1 million atomic bombs. It was 9 miles wide and, caused massive climate change, bringing the end to 75% of life on Earth, including the big dinos. Now, who could survive such a thing? Well, we're here to remind you not to underestimate the small. Forrest is going to be sharing some invertebrates with you for the first 15 minutes. Then Justine and I are going to share some vertebrate survivors with you for the next 15 minutes. And then after that, we're going to take your questions. So make sure you write them down. I can't wait to hear what they are. So with that being said, take it away, Forrest.
Sorry, frozen. I think you're hitting it back to me, Leslie, but it's a bit of a delay. Hope I'm not talking over you. Hi, everyone. I'm Forrest Urban. I manage the live invertebrates here at the Natural History Museum, and I'm back here behind the scenes in what's called our Insectary. That's where we have all the cool behind-the-scenes animals that we rear out for the Butterfly Pavilion, the Spider Pavilion, our Nature Lab, and our brand new Botopia. So let's look at some of the survivors invertebrate style of the dino age, right? If we look at our geographical timeline of the scale of time of what's happening in the past, we can see that the Cenozoic period is when the KT extinction happened, right in between the Cretaceous and the Let's back up for a second and talk about what is an invertebrate. What are some of these amazing properties? We can't go into all the properties, but what are some of the key properties that made them amazing survivors? Well, one of the big ones is their body design, right? All invertebrates have an exoskeleton, right? They have that hard shell on the outside of their bodies. As vertebrates, like dinosaurs were, we have our skeleton, the strong part of our body, on the inside, and all of our soft tissues on the outside. Theirs is reversed. They have their hard exoskeleton on the outside, protecting all the soft stuff on the huge, much, much bigger than they are today, than we are. But through time, they gradually increased in size. And that are the millipedes. Right? Millipedes started out, their ancient ancestor was called Archosaur, pretty big, between 5 and 8 feet long. And if we look at an ancient fossil, we can see what they look like compared to us. So they started out really, really big. Back then, there was much more oxygen concentrated in the atmosphere than there is now. That helped support these larger invertebrates that we used to see in ancient past. There's a nice size comparison of this ancient millipede. Now, eventually the Earth started to change. The oxygen level started to decrease, and this particular species did go extinct. But I have with me today some of the distant relatives of this ancient species. Let's just look are the largest species of millipede that we have here in North America. These are called desert millipedes. And what's really cool about millipedes is they have this hard cylindrical body, right? They live down underneath the substrate, down in the earth, in the strata. And so this hard cylindrical body helps them to pull and push their way through the dirt. They are also what's called a detritivore. So that means that they can eat dead and decaying plant matter. And so as the earth was going through that terrible extinction, a lot of the plants started to die out, a lot of the animals die out, and that's what detritivores actually eat. So they don't need fresh fruit, they need dead and decaying food, that detritivore. So I have a few species here. I also have the largest species currently. You can see they're really cylindrical bodies, right? Millipedes have a ton of legs to help them push and pull their way through the soil. This is an old piece of banana here that it's found that it will absolutely love. Not so much fresh banana, but they love the more rotten, the better. And then I have another one here. This one is all coiled up tight. And so a way that a millipede will protect itself is it will coil into a tight coil to protect the critical portion of its head from getting injured, from getting hurt. And so these species are related to that distant ancestor that we looked at earlier. And so the size got smaller and smaller and smaller, makes it easier for them to survive on less food because they're smaller. And they don't need as large of a shelter either, right? Because they don't have as much of a body to try to hide and protect. All right, I'm going to hand these off to my lovely assistant, William, over here. We're going to move on to some other survivors of the Dino Age. Roaches, right? We all probably know that roaches are amazing survivors. Let's look at some of the reasons why that might be. So this is called a ancient version that's on the screen, that fossilized cockroach. It's probably about half the size as that one was, but it still has all the same adaptations that they did to their ancestors. And so one amazing adaptation is that roaches can really flatten their bodies out super, super flat. You see how flat it is? And so they can find their way into the smallest, tiniest of cracks, which they'll then use as a shelter. Another thing that's amazing about them is they have something inside of their body called a fat body. It's a type of organ that allows them to store food and store fat. That is considered an energy source. And so they can live for about a month with no food, just living off of the fat body inside of that special organelle. Another amazing adaptation that roaches have is what's called gregarious behavior. Gregarious behavior means, it's a fancy word for meaning that they live in social groups. So I have a whole bunch here that are kind of living in this sort of nest situation. And what's amazing is that they'll go out and collect food. and then they'll bring the food back to this nesting situation and store it. Kind of like we do when we go to the grocery store and then we stock up on groceries in our pantry. They do the same thing. And living in these gregarious groups has other benefits because they do a form of social communication. So when one of them detects something out in the environment, they will start to make a signal, and they'll all react to that signal and pass the signal along to each other. And then on top of that, roaches are known to be amazing survivors because they can even live for about a week in the absence of their head. So say something were to happen and they were to get their head knocked, storing food in their inside of their body, they can live in the absence of a head. Their brain is actually back in their back. It's not in the head. And so until they run out of food or they run out of the ability to drink water, they can live without a head. So those are some amazing adaptations that roaches have. Now, it's also said that they can survive a huge atomic blast, an aftershock, radiation. That is true, but they do suffer the effect of radiation as other animals do. What else do we have to look at? I've also brought scorpions. So scorpions used to be huge as well. That girth, that weight. But let's look at some of their amazing adaptations. So scorpions, right? They also have an exoskeleton. Now, this is not a live specimen. This is a specimen that did live here back in the Insectary. It lived a grand old life, and it passed away naturally. And we keep it so we can, like this. So it's perfectly safe for me to hold this guy. Finding a shelter in a tiny crack. But they also have these huge claws up here at the front that help them to catch prey. They can grasp prey and hold it very, very tightly. But then, right, all scorpions have a stinger. They don't waste any of that venom that they've had to produce in their bodies. It's precious to them, it's expensive, and they know when to use it and when to not use it. And so they may sting something that they've grabbed with their chelicera, a food item, in order to subdue it. And they may also defend something if they were being attacked. Now, scorpions can't see very well, but on the back side of their body, they have a special organ here that are very feathery. And that helps them to, in the absence of being able to see something, they can detect vibrations when something's coming towards them, going away from them, and they can translate those vibrations into information. Same way like vibrations into information, scorpions do the same thing. Now, what I think is super cool about scorpions is they also will glow. And that's still kind of a mystery to us as to why do they do this? Why do they glow under ultraviolet light? I have an ultraviolet light here. And you see how it changes color, how it fluorescent, we call that fluorescent. And we think that they use their whole this would be, I'm not protected. This is protected, and this would be, I'm not protected. I'm glowing. my giant eyeball is detecting ultraviolet light. Pretty interesting, right? They also think that they use this glowing in order to recognize each other, to recognize kindred scorpions, if you will, because none of the other animals do that. So it's special to scorpions. Well, thank you so much. And now we're going to look at more survivors of the dino age. Not everything went extinct, right? We still have present day living dinosaurs. Leslie Gordon is in our nature lab, and she's going to show you all about those. Thank you.
Hello, so happy to be back with you. That's right, Forrest. I have got some vertebrate survivors along with Justine. Now, you might be surprised at what animals could survive that great KT extinction. And I think it's fun to look at modern day traits to see if we can sort of put clues together as to why they survived and the biggest dinosaurs didn't. So the first animal, we've got 3, is in my hands. Say hello to Willow. Willow is a gopher snake, a really gorgeous one too. It came to us from the county parks. Beautiful animal here. They're from Southern California. Now, what is it that's so special about the snakes? They saw the dinosaurs come. They said, oh, hello, dinosaurs. And they saw them go. Oh, okay. Goodbye, guys. So what is it that's so great about them? I'm going to show you some of the really cool traits of snakes. For a second, I'm going to go ahead and put Willow over here on my snake climber to give her some time to exercise and explore. But don't worry, we'll be back with her in just a minute while I show you some things about snakes. Here's something special. This is a snake skull. Now, what are these cool features? We've got some very pointy teeth that all curve backwards. They're called recurved because they want the food to go in one direction. Not only that, but they have an extra row of teeth on the roof of the mouth called palatal teeth to give extra grip, as you might imagine. But there's more. Look at these features. We've got these funny little bones in the back called the quadrate bone, as well as no chin. The split chin. I'm going to show you what that's for. Do this with your hands, okay? Open, close, open, close. This is how your jaw works, all right? One hinge point. Snakes have an extra bone in the back of their skull to give them the ability to open up really wide. You young ones can do this with me. That bone helps them open up wide. You notice the chin here can split, okay? That's so that each side of the jaw can act independent of the other side to walk the food on down. Isn't that something? But I'm not done because if you look at the top of the skull, there's these plates that can spread apart. So why do they need this stretchy skull that does this, it does this, it does this, and sort of this? Can you do that? Okay. I'm going to show you a photo. Hopefully you can see why. They can swallow some really big food. 4 times the size of their head they can swallow. And that's a good survival technique because they want to be able to eat their food and go take a nap for a good month or so they don't have to hunt often and they don't reveal themselves to predators very often. Pretty cool, right? So that's the skull. Now, another great thing about snakes is a lack of something. You knew it was a snake because it didn't have any legs. So why is that a useful thing? Oh, I forgot to mention, by the way, because it's not necessarily just the skull, okay, that helps them survive. We're going to show you a picture of a mosasaur in our dinosaur hall. It's got some of the similar features. It's got the quadrate bone, that's that arrow on the top. It's got a flexy lower jaw, that's that arrow on the bottom. It's got recurved teeth, it's got a split jaw. They could eat big food too, but they didn't survive. They have a common ancestor to the snakes and lizards, but they didn't survive that KT extinction. So it's obviously not just one thing. Like I was saying, it could be some other features or lack of features. So now I'm going to go over to the snake climber and we're going to watch Joshua do a little bit of climbing. Excuse me, not Joshua, Willow. Lots of snakes in my life. Oh, there we go. So Willow is showing you some really, what makes a lack of legs so amazing. All right, let's play a little game together. We're going to slither along. You young ones can slither with me. And imagine we're a snake just about to catch our food. Okay, and maybe we're racing a lizard, all right, who runs like this. Can you do that? They got these big wide legs. They're chasing the same food item, right? And the food goes down into a hole. Well, who do you think is going to get to it first? Bet you it's going to be the snake. They don't have the legs to get in the way. And actually, we know from the fossil record that over time, the animals that are now snakes started to spend more time underground because it was easy to hunt down there. Plus, it's a good place to hide, right? Now, let's imagine we're a snake and we're just about to catch our food and it goes in the water. Can a snake swim? You betcha. Move like a fish. Now move like a snake. It's very similar. All snakes can swim. And of course, can they climb? You can see that they are very adept at climbing. I've seen them climb cactuses, walls, so many different things with their incredible bodies. Who needs legs, right? They can go just about anywhere. Their food can go and eat just about anything they can catch because of that big skull. So maybe those are the reasons that the snakes survived. Now, some animals were just waiting for an opportunity. There were some little animals biding their time about, 220 million years ago, waiting for the great KT extinction to happen. That's the next slide I'm going to show you. These animals were waiting, biding their time, hoping that the big dinosaurs would get out of the way. And when they did, boom, mammal explosion. That's when the mammals started to diversify and take over. And the mammal that we've got to share with you today is a survivor of the Dino Age. It's called a living fossil, although it's not a super scientific term. What it means is they have traits that are similar to the ancient mammals. And in particular, a couple of the traits are prehensile tail, being a marsupial. This is an animal from North America. Can anyone guess what that might be? Marsupial? Well, my friend Justine is going to join us and show you exactly who that is. Take it away, Justine.
Some frame of reference. Humans have 32, cats have 25, and dogs have 42. So these 50 teeth are great for crunching all different kinds of food items, and the ability to eat all those different kinds of food items is another ancient trait that these guys have. So they will eat anything from invertebrates. You guys just learned about cockroaches. That happens to be one of Petey's favorite things to eat. They will also eat small mammals, small birds, and even reptiles, even venomous ones. They will also eat roadkill. So just with these 50 teeth, they also have incredibly strong jaws. And those jaws actually give them the ability to crunch right through bone, or right through to the bone and into the marrow. And that's one big reason that these guys don't really make the best yet. So they're also nocturnal and have a lot of really great nocturnal abilities. They have a very keen sense of smell. And he finishes eating his food item. You guys will maybe get a chance to watch him use that keen sense of smell to find more food. But they also use another ancient trait. They're amazing tails. And those tails, like Leslie mentioned, are prehensile. And this means that they are incredibly useful to them. So what kinds of things do you guys might use this tail for? Now, if you're watching a lot of cartoons, you might have guessed hanging upside down. But they actually don't have the ability to do that as adults. So what they use this tail for is while they're climbing around, they will use it to hold on to branches. They will use it basically as an extra limb. And they can also use it to carry around nesting material. So the last ancient trait we're going to talk about today is their really meaty young. So as marsupials, these guys get carried around once they're born by a mom who carries them around in a pouch, just like this. And they can actually have quite a few babies to take care of all at once. So you can have up to 13 at a time, sometimes 2 to 3 times a year, depending on the climate. So as you guys can imagine, it's quite a few babies for this mom to carry around in this pouch, right? So not only does she carry them around in her pouch, but once the babies get a little bit bigger, they climb out of the pouch and actually climb onto the mom's back. So if you guys can see the picture of the mom possum carrying around her baby, and for any parents out there can really sympathize with this poor mama opossum carrying around all these babies on her back. She will normally do this for a couple of months until she decides she's had enough, and then she will boot them right off the back and let them live their own little opossum life. So, interestingly enough, most modern marsupials evolved right about 65 million years ago. And what else was going on around 65 million years ago? The KT extinction. And I don't think this is just some coincidence. These humans didn't just survive, they thrived. So if you guys are dinosaur fans out there, you probably know that not all of the dinosaurs were born. Some did survive the KT extinction. They walk and fly among us. I am, of course, talking about birds. So this KT extinction would have knocked out a lot of the vegetation, the trees and the bushes, which would have left the big plant-eating dinosaurs without a food source, and the other dinosaurs that use this vegetation would go home. But if an animal was small enough, or could live on the ground, or didn't have a problem eating whatever they could find, they would have had a chance to spread their wings, so to speak. So my friend Leslie back in Nature Lab with a special guest for you guys to meet, who just so happens to be the museum's only living resident dinosaur.
That's right. I'm so happy to be back with you. And I have got a live dinosaur in my hands. Say hello to Odin, the Western screech owl. Okay, so we've got Odin, the Western screech owl, who is a living dinosaur. That's right. So the Maniraptorans are the group of animals, birds, that survived, the dinosaurs that survived the KT extinction. And he's got some of those traits that Justine mentioned, even though the owls weren't exactly around at that time, but he's got some of those traits. He's small, okay, now don't mistake it though, he's actually a tough little guy. He's got some talons here that he uses to capture his prey, and they're strong. That's why I'm wearing this glove called the gauntlet, to protect myself. They use thoracic compression like a snake. Now, incidentally, there's some things to protect him too. He's got a leash right now to make sure he can't fly away and get hurt. He's got a big space behind the scenes that he can fly and explore, and I can answer questions about that later. But first, I want to show you some of the remarkable features of these Maniraptorans. Of course, you know right away it's a bird because it's got feathers, right? Feathers have a lot of different jobs. Did you know that? I'm showing you a feather right now on my camera with me that is a downy feather. And look how soft and fluffy it is. By the way, Justine and I are not masking because we are locked in rooms together. That's why I can do this kind of thing. We're locked in rooms alone, all right? Just wanted to let you know. So look at that soft feather. They're so soft that you can hardly even feel when it touches you. It's pretty amazing. Those feathers keep him warm. I've got some other feathers to show you here. Oh, Odin's excited by what I'm bringing out. Can you see that big feather in the middle? There we go. Big feather in the middle. That's a flight feather. And those feathers give the bird some lift. But this is kind of cool. The owls have some special features to their feathers. The photos that I hope you can see right now on the left have like a coating of what looks like little hairs. In addition, the photo on the right is showing you what looks like a comb sticking up. Those two features give the owls silent flight. How cool is that? Have you ever heard a pigeon fly away when you walk up near a flock? I'm sure you have. They're loud, they're flappy, they operate during the day. They don't care if you hear them. But an animal that's nocturnal wants to be silent so that he can what? Catch his prey. The next photo shows you what it looks like when they're flying down on their prey. Now they can eat over 140 different kinds of vertebrates. That's what's happening there on the right. And on the left, you see that they can go on the ground too. They also eat invertebrates. And by the way, like Forrest mentioned, storing food, these guys will stash their food, which can be a little bit alarming for us when we're cleaning up. So they do some really cool things too. Now, the last thing that feathers are really amazing for is to give them some incredible camouflage. Each and every feather on his body has a different pattern. giving him a very complex and beautiful way to camouflage. This photo is now showing you what it looks like when they're sitting in an old growth tree with their eyes closed, watching the world go by. I bet many more owls have seen you than you've ever seen because they're hard to see during the day. Now, they sit there, and I'm going to show Odin doing that too. They sit there and watch the world go by with their eyes closed and their feathers tucked in, so it makes them practically impossible to see. We're going to make Odin disappear now. Okay, you ready? Let's see. Now you see him. Ooh, ooh. This is hard to do. Now you don't. Okay, I know you can still see him sort of, but isn't that incredible? The way that his body can camouflage so perfectly next to the wood. So cool, right? All right, so I'm really happy to have shared these animals with you today. It's fun to look at traits of modern animals and try to guess why they survive. You know, maybe it was their ability to eat anything. Maybe it was their ability to hide anywhere. Maybe it was the ability to have a lot of babies. I look forward to hearing your questions now, and we'll show you this address later, but don't forget to follow us on Instagram at NHMLA_live animals.
Very cool, everybody. That was really great. We have tons of questions from people on YouTube. So I think all three of you, there's questions for you. I'll start with the first one that goes back to Forrest. Forrest, the question was, how did the roaches not die in the dino age?
Great question. So all of those adaptations that we just looked at, right? Just the fact that they're an arthropod with a super protective skeleton, they're super flat bodies that allows them just to snake and creep and sequester themselves in the teeniest, tiniest cracks is a great adaptation. And then, you know, being able to hunker down and not even leave their shelter for a month because they have food stored inside their bodies, on top of the fact that they're not naturally storing food anyways because they're living in a nest, a bunch of other nest mates. So they have all sorts of adaptations for survival, and they weren't affected whatsoever.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Very interesting components to roaches that I don't think anybody ever knew about. So this next one is for you, Leslie. It's about the snake. Somebody just asked, aren't snakes dangerous? I think maybe they're just worried about you treating and handling them and you know, feeding them. And I mean, I think it's a great question. Or do you have any concerns about managing snakes for the museum?
You know, a lot of people are afraid of snakes, and unfortunately they have a bad reputation. But really, most of the world's snakes are not venomous. About a fifth, only a fifth, have venom. And even then, snakes don't want to be bothered. They're quiet, shy little creatures who want to spend time by themselves, just eating the rodents for us and doing their job. So no, I am always sure to make sure that the snake never gets scared. Remember, any animal can bite if it's scared. A dog. I had a fish that bit me every day of its life. Every animal can bite when it's scared. I don't scare the snakes, so they have no reason to defend themselves. And actually, they're very comfortable with us. They've met hundreds of thousands of people in their time here.
That's great. Yeah, that's good to know. This next question is for Justine. Justine, I'm not sure if you said it, somebody might have missed it, but people are really curious to know, what is the name of the opossum that you have there?
This is Petey.
Awesome. Petey. Now, and a follow-up question to Petey is, does Petey have some sort of favorite food? We see that you're munching on there, but I know you said that they eat so much, but is there a preferred food diet for Petey?
So opossums in general are omnivores. So that means basically anything edible, they're going to eat it. We've only had Petey for about a month now, so we're actually still kind of figuring out his favorites. But so far, his protein items. So he likes fish, he likes bugs, he gets little fuzzy mice, he gets scrambled eggs, He loves cheese. So those tend to be his favorite right now, that and fruit.
Nice. Very good. And then, I think we can all relate to Petey. Like, what's my favorite food today, this year, right? We all are trying to figure it out. This next question is for Leslie and for Odin there. Somebody says, does that owl have eyes? Do I only see one eye? Question mark. Wanting to know what's going on with Odin there.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. Now, Petey and Odin are both rescues. They are not animals that could survive in the wild on their own. Petey the opossum, because he was imprinted on humans. He was being kept illegally as a pet. They're not good pets for like a million reasons. And Odin here was probably hit by a car. So slow down out there, people, okay? We think he was hit by a car. He was rescued both by fabulous rehabbers, the Ojai Raptor Center for him, and Petey was the Wetlands and Wildlife Care Center in Huntington Beach. And so they came to live with us to have their amazing lives protected and safe out in the wild, or safe from the wild, so they can live a long, happy, healthy life, again, connecting your hearts and minds to the science that happens here. So yes, Odin was probably blinded by the car. And you don't have to feel sorry for him, though. We actually got him amazing surgery, amazing medical care. He is pain-free. And both of these animals are very lucky, actually, to be living here.
That's great. And then a follow-up question from Jake V. Do the owl feathers change colors, or do they just match the ecosystem that they live in? Which is a great question.
Yeah, I love that, because the term better than camouflage is crypsis. There's cryptic coloration, there's cryptic behavior, there's cryptic sounds, there's lots of ways to blend into your environment. And in particular, this is cryptic coloration as well as behavior when he wants to hide. So he doesn't change, but he knows where he blends in and he knows how to make himself small. I've had people walk by me and Odin without seeing him because he was sitting so still. Isn't that funny?
That's amazing. Well, folks, there are so many great questions. That's all we have time for today. We'll try to go back into the chat and answer some of those. But Leslie, I'll send it to you if you want to just share with folks, where can they find more about the Live Animal program and learn a little bit about the work that you all do?
Yes, thank you. I did mention our Instagram account. Now, that's the account just for our little Live Animal program, and we'll put up that in just a moment. But also the museum's main account and our YouTube. We have so many videos and so much cool stuff to share with you, including lots of animal presentations that go on here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Leslie. All right, with that, we'll send it back over to the control room and we'll catch up with you later. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.